For today's video, I'm going to show you all not one, not two,
not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6.
Okay, definitely not 6. That 6th one was a little buggy.
How's that even possible?
But I will be showing you 5 different elevator builds you can do in LEGO Fortnite. I'm going to show how to design a huge mega elevator that reaches the maximum height. If you'd like to see that one, skip to this part of the video. I'm also going to show a couple of really reliable elevators that haven't broken on me ever since I've built it, like this one. So if you want to see that, go ahead and skip to this part. There's also a couple of small elevators we're going to take a look at that don't require a lot to build, like this one, which you can find at this part of the video. We also got this Willy Wonka elevator looking ass elevator, which you can find at this part of the video. Definitely one of my favorites. And speaking of favorites, I also really like this one too, which you can find at this part of the video. Also, before we get into it, if you want to see more content like this, be sure to drop a like on the video. And I also wanted to give a huge shout out to everybody who's been using creator code A1. I provided timestamps in the description because I wasn't sure which one y'all wanted to see first. But I'm just going to assume most people want to see the huge ultra megalithic elevator first, the one that reaches maximum height. So I'm going to show how to design that first. But before I do, let me show a couple of the fails I experienced while building this big ass elevator.
Oh, fuck.
Huh?
Oh, fuck.
Holy Jesus. What is that? What the fuck is that?
So the first thing you want to do is build a 3x3 with the biggest granite foundation piece. You can also put stairs around it to help you get to it. And you're going to stack that same granite foundation piece on top of the center piece, all the way to the height you want it to go to. Just make sure it's high enough to where it doesn't fly off. Yeah, I did that. I ain't proud of it, but yeah, I did it. But yeah, make a 3x3 with the granite foundation and then stack that same granite foundation on the center piece to the height you want your elevator to go to. You can see where I placed the logs. You don't really need to place those until later, and I'll show when you can place those down. But you'll want to place the logs in those 4 areas. At the top of your structure, you can place down a floor piece with a small pillar attached and put a tire on that pillar. And you can do that in each of the 4 directions, and that's going to stop your elevator from hitting the ceiling. You can also place a floor piece on top of the logs, so if they do end up breaking, they'll stay attached to this piece. So that way you can avoid having this happen to you. And once you've done those things, you're pretty much done with the foundation. And all you'll have left is the elevator itself. So the first thing we did was we used 3 small log pillars. You do want to try to center this one that's closer. But as for the other 2, you'll sort of want to build them where I built them. The exact location doesn't matter as long as you get it close. But you'll want to build those 3 small pillars in each of the 4 directions. And then you're going to place a dynamic foundation on top of those pieces in every direction. And you want to have it lined up with the granite foundation in front of you. You don't want it touching the foundation. You want it to be at least 1 unit away from the foundation. So what I did was I went till it was red. Then I moved it towards myself till it became green. Then I moved it one more time while it was green, and then I placed it down. So I wouldn't place it down the first time it would turn green. I would place it down on the second green. That way there's a little bit of space in between the dynamic foundation and the granite foundation directly in front of it, because you don't want them to be touching each other. So just wait till it goes green once, twice, then place it down. And again, make sure it's centered. You'll do that in each of the 4 directions. Once you've done that, you can go ahead and place a wide floor on one of the dynamic foundations, doesn't matter which one, and then you'll want to connect 3 medium floor pieces to it. And the first one's going to be connected directly in the middle of it. You'll want to place the second one just like this, and then you'll want to place the third one in this direction. Once you've done that, you'll place down another wide floor piece, and then you'll place down 3 more medium floor pieces attached to that, and you'll keep doing that all the way around your elevator. Now after that, you want to put small thrusters in each of the corners on the bottom of your dynamic foundations. And I noticed when I build it this way, 2 of the foundations won't let me put small thrusters underneath them. If that happens to you, just destroy the foundation and the floor it's attached to, replace the dynamic foundation, and then snap another wide floor onto one of the medium floor pieces right above it. And once you've done that, you should be able to place small thrusters underneath it. I think when you snap all the floor pieces into place, it sort of prevents you from putting small thrusters underneath a couple of the dynamic foundations. I feel like I'm boring y'all at this point. But if that happens to you, just destroy it, replace it. You should be able to put small thrusters underneath it. Next thing I did was place the large tire in each of the 4 corners. So they'll be placed underneath the medium floor pieces. And once we've done that, we can now destroy the small log pillars that are underneath the dynamic foundations. I'm not sure if there's a specific order, but the way that I did it was I destroyed the 2 small log pillars that were towards the outside first. And I did that in every direction. Then I destroyed one of the small pillars that was closer to the granite foundation. Then I went to the opposite side of it and destroyed the other one. It should still be standing if you do it this way. Once you destroy the 3rd small log pillar, it will lean, but if you didn't build those logs yet, you won't have to worry about it rubbing. Or if you did place them down already, if you place them down correctly, then it shouldn't matter whether it leans or not. But just go to the opposite side and destroy the last small log pillar. After that, all you'll have to do is just place down an activation switch. I also placed 2 balloons in each corner, as well as 1 balloon on each of the wide floor pieces, just to help us get a softer landing. At this point, I would recommend that you build those tall log pillars in each of the 4 corners. Just make sure it's not rubbing up against any of the pieces, and there's like a fair amount of space between each of the sides of it. But yeah, that's when you want to build your 4 tall log pillars in each of the 4 corners. And once you've done all these things, your elevator should be done at this point. Now, if you build to maximum height, it's going to require a lot of resources. And honestly, I would recommend you go into sandbox mode first, because I did fail quite a few times before I got it right. So yeah, this was one of the more expensive ones. And I built this a couple of days ago. I have logged out and logged back in a few times since then, and it hasn't bugged out when the world loaded in. So it's pretty reliable in terms of that. I would say your biggest issue is going to be when it comes to actually building it. But yeah, I tested it by logging out and logging back in a few times, and it hasn't broken on me since. So it's definitely reliable, but it's also really expensive, especially if you build it to the maximum height. But even if you don't go to max height, it's still more expensive than our other elevator builds. Speaking of our other builds, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Alright, next up we have another reliable elevator build. This is probably the most reliable elevator out of all of the elevators we're going to take a look at today. I built this one about 4 days ago, and it hasn't broken down once. And I can't think of one thing I don't like about this elevator. First thing you're going to need is to build your walls that your elevator is going to go in. And this is going to help prevent your elevator from tipping over. And the walls should be far enough to where at least one wide floor can fit in it and still have a little bit of space in between the floor and the wall. You'll also need some space below the first floor. It's about the size of these 2 granite foundation pieces on top of each other. It's about that deep. And like I said, when it comes to the width, you want to make it a little bit larger than the size of a wide floor. But yeah, once you get your 4 walls built and your space down here below the elevator, first thing you'll want to do is pull out a log pillar 02 and place it directly in the center. Then you'll want to place a dynamic foundation on top of it and try to center that as well. Then we're going to put 4 small wheels on each of the 4 corners. And you may want to go diagonal first so it doesn't tip over. Then you can go ahead and destroy the pillar underneath it. After that, we'll place a wide floor on top of the dynamic foundation. Then we're going to pull out another log pillar 02, place it directly in the middle, You want to make sure this one is centered as well. And then place another wide floor on top of that. Make sure that's also centered. Then we're going to place 2 log pillar O1s on top of this second floor. And you want them to be across from each other. And you also want them to be centered. And then you'll have to place another wide floor on top of those 2 small pillars. Do I have to say make sure it's centered? Make sure it's centered. Then we're going to place 2 small thrusters on each side. And make sure both of those are centered. And then we're going to go to the very top floor and place 4 balloons, 1 in each corner. We're also going to place down 2 small foundation blocks in the middle. And then we're going to place a small tire on top of those 2 small foundation blocks. And that's to help prevent it from taking damage when it hits the roof. Also placed 2 more balloons down, 1 on each side. So we have a total of 6 balloons on top. Anyways, last thing we need to do is go back down to the first floor, place down an activation switch, and that's all you'll need in order to build this elevator. And like I said, this is probably one of the most reliable elevators I've built so far. The only thing you'll want to look out for is make sure you don't have walls that have any hooks on them like the walls I have here, because that can sort of stop it from going up or down. But yeah, just make it as high as you want it to be. That's pretty much all you have to do for this elevator. Definitely one of the best elevators I've built so far. The next one we're going to take a look at is the Willy Wonka elevator build. And this is such a good build. It doesn't require a whole lot of resources. I built this probably about 4 or 5 days ago and it hasn't broken down on me yet. So it's also very reliable, even though I've loaded this world probably dozens of times since I built it. So it's not going to bug out on you. First thing you need to do is build these 4 log pillar O2s, 1 in each direction, and then we're going to place a dynamic foundation on top of it. After that, we're going to put 1 big wheel on each of the sides, and then you can go ahead and destroy the pillars after this. Once you've done that, you're going to place a balloon in each corner. We're going to place another log pillar O2 directly in the middle, a medium-sized floor piece on top of the pillar. After that, you're going to want to put a small thruster in each corner of the medium floor piece. And you want to try to line them up as best you can so they're pretty much even with each other. That way you won't rock one way or another. You'll go straight up. And the last thing you'll need to do is place down an activation switch. And yeah, I would consider this to be a really fun elevator to use. It only takes a couple minutes to build it. Doesn't require a lot of resources, and it's pretty much going to lift you straight up. The only thing you're going to have to look out for, don't hit the activation switch right after the thrusters come off. Instead, you'll want to wait maybe a second or 2 before you hit the activation switch again, because if you hit it right away, it can make you lean one way or another, and you'll sort of rock back and forth a little bit. And another thing that's sort of bad, I guess, is that it doesn't exactly land where you took off at. But that's not really an issue because it's so small you can push it around. So even if it doesn't land exactly where you want it to, you can push it to wherever you want it to go. But yeah, this is actually a really fun and easy elevator to build, even if you're in survival. And again, this is another one that hasn't broken down on me yet, even though I've logged in and logged out dozens of times. And like I said, it's also a cheap elevator. It doesn't really cost a whole lot, but it's not the cheapest. As a matter of fact, this next elevator we're going to take a look at is what I consider to be the cheapest elevator, but maybe not as efficient when it comes to elevation. I would use it more or less the same way you use geysers in the desert. But like I said, it doesn't really cost a whole lot to build. Speaking of the build, first thing you'll have to do is put down a medium floor piece. And then you'll want to put down this rustic stair in each direction attached to that medium floor piece. Next thing we're going to do is put down a rustic thin floor right here. And then we're going to place down a wood foundation that's this size on top of the thin floor piece that we just placed. And you want to make sure that it's almost centered directly above the medium floor that's on the bottom. You want to try to make sure it's centered. Next thing we're going to do is put a large thruster at the bottom, and this is the only thruster we're going to use. Make sure that's centered. Then we're going to place the small wood foundation pieces in each corner, and you're going to have to place down a total of 3 of them in each corner. And you want to place down 3 of these wooden foundation pieces directly in the center, and then we're going to place another large wooden foundation piece directly on top, and make sure that's centered as well. Next thing I did was build some stairs outside of it so I could get on top without accidentally pushing it over. And from here, we're going to place down 1 large balloon directly in the middle. And we're also going to place down one activation switch. And you can place this anywhere on top. And the last thing we need to do is destroy the thin floor piece that's underneath our elevator. And we also have to destroy 2 of these wooden foundation pieces that are in the middle. You can go ahead and keep the last one in there. And after that, you're pretty much done. Again, you want to use the stairs to get on top of it so you don't accidentally push it over. But this one's pretty reliable. Not as reliable as the previous 3, because there was one time when I loaded in and our elevator wasn't inside of the 4 stairs. It somehow loaded outside of it. But I mean, if that ever happens, all you have to do is just rebuild the stairs, lift the elevator in the air, and rebuild the stairs directly underneath it. Yeah, even if it does mess up, it's still really cheap and doesn't require a whole lot to build. The only thing is, it seemed like it wasn't as good as the other elevators when it comes to getting to a high elevation quickly. Like I said, you mainly just want to use these the same way you use geysers in the desert. Maybe chain a few of them together in between villages, and you can just get around the map that way. So it's a pretty good elevator, but I wouldn't consider it to be one of my favorites. Instead, I would say this next elevator is probably my favorite elevator. And this is the last one we're going to take a look at, people. If you made it this far, give yourself a pat on the back. You deserve it. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is place down 2 thin rustic floor pieces. And you want to make them about this far apart. It doesn't have to be exact. After that, we put down a log pillar O2 directly in the middle. And you want to place your dynamic foundation on top of that. Then you can go ahead and destroy the pillar, and it should land directly on top of your thin floor pieces. After that, we're going to take this shogun pillar, O1, and place one on each side. And you want to have them directly in the middle and across from each other. Then we're going to place a small wheel on one of those pillars and place this rustic pillar directly outside of that small wheel. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. And basically, you want to make sure that the rustic pillar is facing to where the wheels fit directly inside of it, because it sort of has like 2 edges on the inside. So you want to make sure that the tire fits perfectly inside of it. And once you've done that on both sides, you want to put another small tire at the top of the pillar that we have on top of our dynamic foundation. It should also fit directly in between the 2 rustic pillars. And basically those rustic pillars are going to be the track that these wheels go up and down on. Once you've done that, you can go ahead and extend the outside rustic pillars that your wheels are on. You can go ahead and extend those upwards to however high you want it. You also want to do this one as well. And again, these 2 wooden pieces we're building right now are going to be the track that our wheels go up and down on. So yeah, that's sort of how you build the track on that side. We're going to do the same exact thing on the other side. All you have to do is just make sure that your rustic pillars are facing the right direction. Once you've laid down both the tracks, you want to put a rustic beam on top of it, and you want to put one on top of both sides. And directly underneath that rustic beam, you want to place another small tire. And hopefully those tires will help prevent it from breaking once it gets to this height. So that's how we built the tracks. This thing you need to do is place down a rustic thin floor piece directly on top of your 2 pillars on your dynamic foundation. And then you're going to place 2 small thrusters, one on each side of that thin floor piece that you just placed. And try to line them up and spread them out as evenly as possible, so that way it won't lean one way or the other. And after that, the last thing you'll need to do is just place down 3 small balloons on top of that thin floor piece that you put the small thrusters on. And you want to have them spaced out evenly as well. And once you've done all these things, the last thing you'll have to do is place down an activation switch. You can put it on one of the pillars that has the tires on it. And this elevator's pretty much good to go. So it probably took me about 10 minutes to build. Doesn't really require a whole lot of resources. But I think the main reason I like this elevator is just because I like the way that it looks. I wouldn't say it's the most reliable, because there was one instance where I loaded in and the tires weren't on the track. But fortunately, all I needed to do was just give it a little push. The tires went back on track, and I haven't had any problems with this elevator since then. And this was the first elevator I built, so it's been about 5 days, and this elevator is still working. But not only can we build one going up, we can also build one of these elevators going down. You're basically going to do the same exact thing we did last time as far as the tracks, the wheels, the dynamic foundation. The only thing we're going to change are the position of the thrusters and the balloons. So if you want to build one that goes down, again, we built it the same way we built the first one, but we're going to put the small thrusters on top of this thin floor piece instead of below it. And we have 3 this time instead of 2. And we're also going to place down 4 balloons, 1 in each corner, on top of the dynamic foundation. And we're going to place 2 more balloons on top of the thin floor piece up top. And you want to place those between your thrusters. And once you've done that, you've built an elevator that goes down. Now the elevator that goes down did bug out on me. One time I loaded in and it was floating away. So apparently it didn't load in correctly. But one thing I did in order to fix it was I just extended our tracks and added another beam on top of that, just in case if it tries to fly away again. Hopefully making this backup will prevent it from flying away. But as for the first elevator that goes up, I haven't had any more issues with that since I pushed it back on track. And in my opinion, it's a really good elevator to use. So out of all the ones that we tried today, let me know in the comments which one's your favorite. If you found this video useful, be sure to drop a like, share it with your friends, or favorite it so you can come back to it later. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel. I think only like 9% of the people make it to the end of the video. And with this one being a long ass video, I doubt even that many people will make it to the end. So if you're one of the 9%, let me know in the comments below. I will heart the out of your comment. Anyways, I hope y'all have a wonderful day, and thanks for watching.